Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about Deco and Laporta renewing the contract of Frenkie de Jong, and then talk about Marc Guehi. Now be careful, I'm not saying Marc Guehi, I'm saying Marc Guehi, which is a center back that we are going to be talking about that could reinforce Barcelona's defensive line. Like, what could he bring to this squad? So let's talk about Frenkie de Jong first, because knowing that Barcelona want to renew Frenkie de Jong, they're signaling out that they are looking to bring in long-term squad stability, and they want to retain their core group of players. They're not out here trying to like emergency sell and let go of players only because they don't work in the short term. Barcelona are now moving much differently, right? So they want to make sure that no matter what happens, whether a player leaves or stays, it's going to be a positive for Barcelona in the long run. So like, for example, Barcelona renewed Fermin Lopez until 2029. He has a 500 million euro release clause with improved wages. And because of this renewal, that is what allowed for Fermin Lopez to either stay at the club or to leave Barcelona to maybe a team like Chelsea. And Barcelona had the capacity and the audacity to say that he's going to be costing 90 million euros if he does leave. This is the reason why renewals are very important, because they can ask for big prices with no problem. That is why I say if a player does stay, fine, let them continue with the squad. They're good anyways. But if they leave, worst case scenario, Barcelona will be getting a lot of money. And Fermin Lopez was the ultimate example. Somebody who barely did play last season, but still Barcelona could say that they needed 90 million euros for his exit. So can you imagine how much somebody like Frenkie de Jong would cost if a club wants to buy him in the summer of 2026? Maybe it could be 90 to 100 million euros. We just never know. The same thing could be said about Yamal, who renewed until 2031. I mean, like, bro, Yamal is not going to leave, but the worst case scenario, if Yamal ends up deciding to leave, would be for Barcelona to ask for 290 to 350 million euros, and possibly even more. We can also talk about Ronald Araújo, who has renewed until 2031. Deco has convinced him to stay, which is really good news. He has increased his wages, but if Araújo, worst case scenario, wants to leave maybe in January 2026 or the summer of 2026, at the very minimum, Barcelona is going to be asking for more than 80 million euros. So Barcelona is now in a position where if they let go of any of their main players or even first team players, a lot of money is going to be injected. This is the reason why so many renewals have been happening in the past year, like Bernal, like Casado, like Cubarsí, Balde, Eric Garcia. It's all part of the big plan, and Frenkie de Jong is next. Also keep in mind that these renewals are also going to benefit our financial fair play and really push us towards the 1-1 rule, because if Frenkie does renew, that would mean that we will be able to spread the transfer fees across longer contracts. So for example, if a player like Jules Koundé, right, the fact that he renewed until 2030, that meant that with that transfer fee that Barcelona were supposed to pay, that has been spread out for another 5 years, and Barcelona will be saving 3.87 million euros annually. So with Frenkie de Jong's renewal, it's going to be the exact same thing. We could be saving around 3 to 5 million euros annually. And moving forward from 2025 and beyond, there is going to be a strategic way on how Barcelona do pay their players annually in terms of salaries. Because, for example, Barcelona wanted to bring in Nico Williams, but the whole structure of that deal was he was going to be receiving a low salary, but it does rise gradually depending on what targets you do hit in terms of trophies won, how many goals, how many assists, what is your overall performance. It was definitely not like this 9 to 10 years ago when we had Bartomeu. We used to sign players that are like B or C level, pay a lot of money in terms of the transfer fee, and then pay them a lot of money per year, regardless whether they showed great results or not. Like, I'm talking about 12 to 15 to 80 million euros a season. Like Pjanic, for example, we paid too much for that player. So the way that Barcelona handled the Nico Williams negotiation, even though he's not our player and he rejected us, that does give us a sense as well on how Barcelona will approach the salaries with new upcomers in the transfer market. But going back to Frenkie de Jong, right? Frenkie de Jong is the midfield anchor. I remember when he first came, everybody was saying that Frenkie de Jong might be the successor to Sergio Busquets, but even de Jong admits himself that he is not a lone pivot. He cannot do what Sergio Busquets does, which is why we saw him struggle a lot in terms of adaptation for the first 4 to 5 years. But up until Hansi Flick came, a lot of things have been resolved. So instead of anchoring deep by himself in the midfield, Frenkie eventually formed a double pivot with Pedri, offering press resistance, progressive carries, and a lot of tactical flexibility. And it was a little strange how Frenkie de Jong started under Flick, because when Frenkie came back from injury, he convinced Frenkie that he can play as an advanced playmaker like a 10. But then ultimately, as time went by, he formed a fluid partnership with Pedri. And that's mainly because Casado got dropped and he saw that Frenkie was the better one that can stick to Pedri. And now up until today, like I'm talking about like from January 2025 till now, Frenkie and Pedri together are untouchable. And that is because together they combine defensive cover with a lot of creative build-up. Go look at his match against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League from last season. It was a masterclass. So our core group of players is Frenkie, it is Yamal, it is Cubarsí. You can also say Araújo with Alejandro Balde and Pedri. But one thing that does really excite me, right, is what is going to be the future of Frenkie for the next 2 or 3 years, because we know that he might stay. Like, there's an 80% chance that he'll continue with us past 2027. But if he does, what does the midfield look like? Does Hansi Flick continue to rely on Frenkie and Pedri as time does go by? Or could we see Bernal emerge? Could we see Casado emerge? Could we see Gavi and Pedri as the ultimate duo? Because we have seen Gavi and Pedri play together and they are amazing. Or what if Bernal finds his former form that he had a year ago? Because remember, Bernal was not even second guessed in the CDM position when Hansi Flick came in. He saw Bernal, he's like, I'm going to immediately include you into the midfield because you are exactly what I do want. And so if Bernal finds that form again, what does that say for Frenkie? I know that it does seem a little unfair to say that, you know, Pedri should be dropped and maybe we should consider a Bernal-Frenkie partnership, but like Pedri is just too good to be dropped, and the only way he could be dropped is if he does get injured. But as of now, I would say that it is safe to say that Frenkie and Pedri are the untouchables under Flick in the midfield. Now I do want to speak about a center back that Barcelona are eyeing, and that is Marc Guehi. He is a 25-year-old center back born in Ivory Coast, but does represent the English national team. He currently does also represent Crystal Palace, and as of right now, things are not looking too good between this center back and Crystal Palace because of personal and external reasons. But he is a center back that is very tall. He's 6 feet with 23 appearances for the English national team, and he was a starter in the Euro 2024 final run. The reason why Barcelona are considering the center back is because his contract does expire in a year, so like around June 2026, and he was actually supposed to go to Liverpool. It was a failed move, by the way. Liverpool did offer 35 million euros this past summer, but it did not end up happening for both parties. Hence the reason why I really do think that he has a little frustrations and tensions with his club, because maybe he really wanted to move to Liverpool. And here's the thing, I know that many might say Guehi is not good enough, that he's a center back that cannot break into our defensive line. If a team like Liverpool is interested in him, there has to be something, because Liverpool is such a high bar right now. They still have players like Van Dijk, Konate. They have also reinforced their defense with Frimpong. We can also name Robertson and other players like Joseph Gomez. They have a lot of defenders, and the fact that they wanted him this summer, it's insane. So there has to be something special about him, which is the reason why I looked up his information to see what type of center back he is. And I think that yes, it's true. He might be one of the most demanded center backs in the summer of 2026. Could Barcelona sign him? His passing accuracy is 87.2% in the Premier League and 95.1% in England. So he has excellent composure under pressure. In terms of progression, he's in the top 20% in dribbles completed, which is 0.36 per 90, and in the top 30% in progressive carries, which is 3.14 per 90 minutes. His strengths is all about driving forward with the ball. He uses a lot of feints, sharp turns. He excels in breaking lines, which perfectly does align with Barcelona's build-up from the back. Like I've said, very calm under pressure, and that's mainly because he's able to readjust his position when he does have the ball. And when you have a player, especially a center back, who has to distribute a high defensive line with other players, you do need to be calm under pressure. So his profile does seem perfect for Hansi Flick. Keep in mind that he's also a captain at Palace, so he led them to their first FA Cup of 2025 and a Community Shield. He's a vocal organizer, somebody who likes to scream, somebody who likes to talk to his teammates and say that this is what we need to do. He's very assertive, very mature, and that is something that is missing at Barcelona's backline, right? We talk about how we need leadership, we need somebody vocal, we need somebody who tells the players what to do. How do we organize? How do we readjust? How do we deal with players like Mbappe when we have to, or players like Julian Alvarez when we have to? What is our solution? This is a player that can get us through that, just like how Iñigo Martínez was providing that before. There's a lot of issues in Barcelona's defense right now. We conceded 72 goals last season, by the way, across all competitions. We have conceded also 12 big chances in the first 3 La Liga matches. It is the worst in the league. We have a very predictable offside trap, hence the reason why so many players have been able to like really get out of the offside trap, be onside, and create that big scoring chance. Barcelona really got hit hard when Iñigo Martínez went to Al Nassr, but with somebody like him who maybe potentially come in January 2026, his defensive stats are really good. Per 90, right? In terms of clearances, he averages 4.45, very close to Van Dijk's 4.61. His defensive duel success rate is 77.7% with 10.86 recoveries per 90, 3.89 interceptions per 90. His top speed is 33.9 kilometers an hour, which is ideal for covering behind Barcelona's high line. And the fact that he can also play on the left center back position and the right center back position, this also does explain the reason why he can step into the midfield, is because he knows how to use both feet. Now, of course, with every player, there's always going to be a weakness. Like, for example, when he comes in, he's going to have to adapt to a brand new league, kind of like Marcus Rashford. And we already know what's going on with Marcus Rashford today. He's also not left-footed, so if he is going to be implemented in the left center back position, would he be ideal immediately? We know that he can play in both positions, but could he do that on the left side in a brand new league? So let me know in the comment sections down below. Would you sign a player like Marc Guehi. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.